Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner and to a Cardfight Vanguard deck profile, and then is going to be an updated version of Nectar featuring Asha here. This is going to be my fourth attempt at shooting this deck profile because every other attempt so far has ended up being almost 20 minutes long, and I'm trying to cut back on the amount of time I spend on these videos, so I'm going to try and get through this quickly while also explaining just a couple things. This is Nectar updated for post BTG04 as Asha gains some new support and some pretty good stuff at that. Although it's not going to be enough for the deck to compete in like the competitive environment because, let's be real here, Paladin decks are too fast, and the other decks you see in play other than Paladins at the major level are control retire based decks like Kagero or Narukami, which this deck kind of struggles with, especially Narukami because Big Bang Knuckle Turbo completely invalidates your entire board. So, yeah. That aside though, it's pretty fun, and if you enjoyed the Maiden style play, then this deck is a bit better than that. Just unfortunately, it does take time to get rolling. So, that being said, let's get started with the starter, which is Spring Heralding Maiden Azu. The Generation 1, put into the soul, choose a Great Duelist, Rearguard, and clone it, which at this point, I'm hoping you guys know what I mean when I say clone. And I'm also not going to spend a whole bunch of time talking about the cards I've already talked about, because I will link to my last take on this deck, which was Asha and Venus Flytrap Reverse, as I explained in a great detail there how all the cards work. But yeah, Azu is still in there. I'm only running one because there's no need to run the second copy now that we have more main phase cloning. 4 copies of Ranunculus Flower Maiden Asha. She is your main grade 3 Vanguard. On Stride skill gives you Rearguard cloning, and she has a Generation Break 2 skill that sometimes comes up. Then for backup grade 3, I'm now running 4 copies of Crystal Wing Dragon, who has a Generation Break 1 skill of counterblast 1, choose one of your units, and then up to 4 units of the same card name in play, gain 3,000 power. So it's helpful for doing some stuff, but the main reason why you play it is that when you ride it, counterblast 1, soul blast 1, choose one of your grade 2 or less rearguards, and you copy it. Just that. He gives you free cloning that doesn't require limit break or generation break, so he's something you can actually play if your opponent is going to be staying on grade 2 for you and they won't let you stride and such. You can at least ride this thing, copy a rearguard, and just try and make some kind of a push. If your opponent is playing the grade 2 lockdown game, however, don't stay on grade 2, go to grade 3, because you need the extra drive check to make up for the loss and advantage that you'll be taking from guarding their Russia based attacks. Then for the grade 2s, I'm running 4 copies of Flower Chamber Maiden Saliana. Saliana's skill is very, very good. She is on call. If you have a grade 3 or greater Ranunculus Vanguard, you choose one of your rearguards, counterblast 1, soul blast 1, clone it, and it gains 2,000 power. This is good because it gives you main phase cloning, which is something this deck has been lacking for a very long time. As up until this point, cloning could really only be done during your stride phase. If you have another one of these in play or manage to keep this in play, and if your Arborea or Primaveras did anything. So basically your main plays of copying came from the stride phase and the battle phase. This gives you a mean of actually cloning during the main phase, and it helps you keep a board against some control to some degree, as if they like kill your stuff. You can call this thing down, clone a rearguard, and potentially clone this, who will clone another rearguard if you have a Maiden Gladios or you happen to have the new Asha in play. So it's very good. And then 4 copies of Maiden on Flower Screen. This is a very integral part of the deck, as long as you're playing Jingle Flower Dragon, as once per turn you can choose a normal unit from your drop zone and put it on top of your deck, while also targeting another unit you have in play, and she becomes that name until the end of the turn, which is really important, as Jingle Flower Dragon gives your units plus 2,000 power for each copy of a unit in play, and if you happen to have 3 units with the same name in your back row, you can have 2 Flower Screens, copy those things, to make it basically 5 units of the same name. Thus Jingle Flower gives all of those units plus 10,000 power each. Originally you would do this with Sour Slicer, but now there's a better card than Sour Slicer in the deck. But needless to say though, Flower Screen is part of your deck's main win con and helps you make big ass columns, as if you successfully resolve Flower Screen with a Jingle Flower Dragon, then your side columns should be 36,000 power. Minimum. You can still pump them up even further. And lastly, 3 copies of Maiden of Gladios, your Generation Break 1 Amber clone, so when it attacks the Vanguard and is boosted, you clone a rearguard. It's okay, although I really am thinking about running a copy, 3 copies of the 10k vanilla for defensive purposes, as again this deck has problems dealing against rush, and running a 10k vanilla is helpful for that, because If you hit a trigger, you go to 15, which cuts off their 12,000, 10,000, and 14,000 side columns, if they happen to be in that scenario, which happens a lot of the time. So that's why I think the 10k vanilla is useful, and if the next time you see this deck on here, don't be surprised that I am in fact running those. Then for the grade 1s, 4 of the Perfect Card G, 4 Stride Enablers, and then 4 of a new card called Early Flowering Maiden Pia. This replaces Sour Slicer in the sense that it helps you make big power columns with Jingle Flower Dragon, but even by itself, as it has an effect to choose 2 normal units from your drop zone, put on top of your deck to choose one of your units in play, and then all up to 4 units with the same name as that card, it gain 2,000, 3,000 power each. So if you happen to have 3 of these in the back, and just 2 units in your drop zone, like 2 Perfect Guards, you can put them to the top of your deck, choose up to 4 Pias in play, and they each gain 3k, so now you have 10k boosters for the turn. If you happen to have 2 more units in the drop zone, then they can become 13k boosters, and such forth and such forth. Thus, if you happen to have enough units in your drop zone to do power up these things 3 times, with Maiden of Flower Screen copying them, and then you slap a Jingle Flower Dragon on them, you've got some big ass numbers there. And then lastly, I'm running 2 AK Vanillas because I really couldn't think of anything to put in the slot, and defensive thing. It being on grade 3 means that my opponent just simply can't plop down a 7k attacker and attack with me, and I'm forced to guard it. Now they have to boost the 7k or hold the 7k, or try and fish for a trigger on it. And if they do put a trigger on it, that's still only 12,000 power, and if I hit a trigger on this, I'm at 13. So that turns off their 10k attackers from the side and 12k attacker. So, lastly, for the triggers, I'm running 4 of the Ranunculus Flower Maiden trigger. So when your Asha attacks, put into the soul, gain 5k, and draw a card. And then just 12 crits total. I'm not running draw triggers now because honestly, I don't want to draw into my clone targets. I want to pull them out of the deck and just beat them to death with crits, because that's the way I feel like I'm going to be able to actually catch up with these decks, is by trigger sacking them, which is unfortunate, but that's just how it is. Although I do appreciate the fact that critical trigger draw triggers help me maintain hand, thus allowing me to call units down from my hand and clone if need be. But anywho, then for the G zone, I'm running 1 copy of Arborea, the on-hit clone of Rearguard, and it gains 2k. 1 Primavera when it attacks, kind of lasts 3. Put 5 normal units from your drop zone to the top of your deck, and choose 2 of your Rearguards, and then you can tell basically 2 more Rearguards of this each name in play. Well, also you discard a card, but basically what this means is you can attack with a side column and attack with a side column, then you attack with Primavera, kind of lasts 3. Choose 2 Rearguards, and then call down 2 more of each Rearguard onto the field and attack with the side and attack with the side. It's a nice little multi-combo attack thing that burns up a lot of counterblasts, but those side columns are going to be like 16 at best, and if your opponent hits multiple triggers at that point, you're shit out of luck. So you got to be careful with this thing. I'm not even sure if I'm going to continue running it in the future. I might just cut it. I wouldn't know for what. 2 copies of the new Ranunculus Flower Maiden, or Dream Weaving Ranunculus Asha. So this thing is very good, and I really want to take this up to 4. It's just I don't have 4 copies yet. But I think I will probably drop 2 Jingle Flowers for 4 of these, as I feel like Asha's just a strictly better card. As her skill is Persona Flip. Choose one of your Rearguards, and if you have 2 units with the same name as that in play, so that unit plus another unit, your front row gains 5,000 power. Or rather, all units currently in your front row gain 5,000 power for the turn, which is okay, so 5,000 to the front. Then, if you have another face-up unit in your G-zone, so basically, if this is your second stride, you can choose one of your Rearguards, clone it against 2k. This is very, very good, as it gives you more main face cloning, it helps you recover a board, and if you happen to have at least just a unit in play, like a Pia in the back row, you can stride this on top of regular Asha, clone the Pia, so you now have another copy of Pia. Then you can call down a Saliana, and Saliana can clone that Pia. And then you can have Asha G-flip, target this, your front row gains 3k, and then she can just clone this down. Yeah. That would be how it would work. So just like that, for basically she helps you maintain your board, or make a board if you can't do so already, which means that the number of copies you run would probably be meta game dependent. Like if you expect to see a lot of retire decks, then more Ashas would be needed. And then for the remaining grade 4s, 4 copies of Jingle Flower Dragon, who at this point we all know choose one of your Persona Flip, and if you have 2 or more face-up units in your Genie Zone, you choose one of your rear guards, and then all units with the same name as that rear guard gain 2,000 power for each unit with the same name in play. So you have a full board of 5 of the same card, and thanks to Made in Flower Screen, that's very possible. Again, 10,000 power to the front, to everything, or rather to all those things, which is pretty nice because that means this will be swinging for about nearly 40. Your sides will be swinging for 36 plus, and if you use more main Pias, then those things will be 40 plus side columns. Pretty good. So that's pretty much it for the deck itself. Feel free to comment and tell me what you guys think of it if I'm playing it, or rather I have it built right, and if I'm right about these things, or if you guys are like, nah, no, that's alright, just play something else, because I don't know what I would run in the slot instead. Like, I was originally running 2 copies of the Musketeer Susanna, but Soul Blast 2 is really detrimental to this deck now that Saliana's a thing, and I value Saliana's contributions to the deck more than the Unflip 2 damage. I suppose I could cut one, I don't know. I just don't know. I could also cut one Stride Enabler and just run a 3rd copy of the Grade 1 AK. I'm also thinking about, there's also this thing too. It's like, I don't know. A 10k beat stick's also not half bad too. It's 15,000. If I put a trigger on it, 15,000 power still means I can attack a 9k rear guard, and they can't use a 5k, or rather, they still would have to use a 5. Never mind. I'm wrong on that one, but you know what I mean, though, what I mean by magic numbers. So that's it for the deck itself. As far as a updated Musketeer deck would be, because that's also a possibility, that won't come until I get 4 copies of these, because as I've already mentioned, I don't think Jingle Flower Dragon is very good in Musketeers. So instead, I would just go 4 Asha, this, and I don't know what else, because I don't like Captain Cecilia, you guys know. Probably 2 Meduse. Yeah, that'll be it. So 4 Asha, Primavera, Arborea, and 2 Meduse. There's your Stride lineup. And nothing else in the main deck will have changed other than the fact I went back to Elvira Vera. So, there's your updated Stride Musketeer deck profile for post 4. Whee! And that's pretty much it. And all I got for the time being. It'll be a while before I'm able to build Gear Chronicle, because next stage is forever expensive at the moment. I'm going to wait until he drops to the under $30 mark and then pick up my copies. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Blue Star 89, jacking out.